we're all in a journey of truth. And when we can sit in a crowded room with many different beliefs, many different backgrounds, experiences, hopes, and dreams, and hold space for each one of us and hold space for each conversation, each story, right? Like, as a child, I went through a lot of trauma. I grew up in trailer parks, and I am committed as a person to continue to show up with intentionality, to be the best version I can of myself. I think that one by one, as we hold ourselves accountable and we give ourselves the encouragement to say that we do have a choice, right? Every single one of us, that is when we can see true transformation, not just in ourselves, but in the world at large.
Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicherter, and today I'm honored to be joined by Rachel McCord, founder of the McCord List and Holy Spirit Vibe, and host of the McCord List Today Show, whose journey through open heart surgery sparked a deep rediscovery of purpose and the power of showing up as her true self. Rachel shares how leaning into community, embracing love, and turning to prayer have guided her through healing and transformation. In this episode, we explore the profound role connection and faith play in finding yourself again after life-altering experiences, and how showing up with an open heart can lead to unexpected strength and clarity. If you're ready to be inspired by a story of vulnerability, faith, and resilience, this conversation is for you. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
What a sweetheart. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm good. I'm learning how to ride the waves of life, both on a health front and also with my mission work, what I feel called to do in this world. And so I'm trying to learn how to do that more effectively for myself and listen to myself, and also press in when it's difficult and not give up when you feel like the waves are coming. So
Okay, same. And that's something that's so hard to do, especially with mission-driven work. At least for me, I take everything so personally when it comes to my work because I care so much. And it's so hard to navigate when things don't go exactly the way you want it to. It's like you feel it in your heart and you just have to hold space for it and not let it get you. And I'm not good at that.
100% understand. And I also think that part of it is like just accepting that we're not supposed to be good at it. We're not like, we don't have to be good at it. What we do have to do is we have to be real with it, and we have to create space for it. And I think understand that we're all just figuring it out, like there's never that moment when you've arrived, no matter how much education, experience, success you've had. Life is changing at a rapid pace, and it is difficult to hold all of the spaces. And I think my word for the world right now is look up, because many of us are buried in devices and we don't see the person in front of us, and you never know when you're called to love the person in front of you. And if you're so busy looking down into the virtual worlds that we create and that we love and we feel so excited about, we can miss that. But oftentimes I think we're going to go where we feel the best about ourselves. So we have to ask ourselves, is this a pride thing? Is this an ego feeding moment? Or is this an opportunity for growth, for giving, for contribution to the world?
That is such a powerful question. And that's something, it's so hard. I'm learning to balance social media and real life and how those intersect. And it's so easy to be on my phone all the time and trying to see what's happening everywhere in the world, and then try to see where I fit into that, and then talking with my friends only on the phone through text. And then I disconnect with myself and I forget that what's online can be real, but not the full story. And if I maybe am not showing everything as I try to show a lot, other people probably aren't too. And if I keep going on and thinking everyone else has it figured out and I'm only connecting via this version of me that you see and this version of you that I see, it does not go well.
it's not the same thing. And so it makes perfect sense that it's not going to go well, right? Because I look at it like I have with the McCord List Media Network, this community of amazing creators and hosts, and we create shows and develop and distribute them. And every single Wednesday, we do a touch point as a group. I do a coaching topic, and then we open it up for Ask Me Anything moments. You can talk about your show, your business and your show, and how they click together. But what I've noticed is that if I rely solely in this group environment to have the power of the one-to-one conversation, it's going to fall flat because there are going to be people who feel nervous, who aren't going to want to share. They're maybe skewing a little bit more introverted. So if I sat down with them in front of a fireplace, cozied up, or in front of the beach, talking and processing life, then they would probably be much more real and raw about what's happening in their lives than they will in that group environment. And I think about that with social media because if I expect my whole world or even myself to show up to the masses in the same way that I'm going to show up in a one-to-one moment, it's not realistic. And then the challenge is that we're all doing our best, like we're all on at a networking event. Like no one needs to hear at a networking event every single part of the negative sides of your life, right? It's one thing if we're doing it to help, right? This is what I'm facing. This is what I'm trying to learn. What do you think? What are you facing? Here's something I just absorbed and it's changed my life. I feel that is a beautiful way to utilize social media, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't really they don't go on social media and feel very inspired. They don't feel uplifted. And so then you have to look at who you're following. What are you engaging with? I say this to my husband all the time because my husband loves the news. His family has his whole life. And I am not that girl. I do not want to go to the news to start my day or to end my day. Like I might tap in and see what's happening in the world with a squinty eye. Okay, bye-bye. Let me do a prayer. But I observe that power hour, the 30 minutes after you wake up, the 30 minutes before you go to bed. It's very important. Like, what am I putting in my mind? And the nights when I put reality television in my mind, I don't have the best outcome, right? Because it's like, what are we feeding ourselves? We're having spiritual interactions, whether we realize it or not. So we have to be honoring of that. But I tell my husband so much, I'm like, babe, if you put this stuff in your mind too much, it's input, it's output, right? So what you eat, you start to feel. What you do, you feel. And so I think all of us get to be mindful of that, and we get to choose it and choose into it. So I'm much more of a group texter, to be honest. I love my people, and I like dropping in love and hearing love and doing prayer requests with one another. I show up so much more authentically, I think, in that way. I try to show up authentically no matter what, but I mean like more raw and sharing parts of me that maybe I don't want the rest of the world to know.
Okay, you made so many valid points. First of all, the so much. I'm so happy I'm talking with you right now because I need this conversation.
Same.
We have so much more control than we realize on the content that we receive and who we engage with and how we engage. And that's something I've recently learned. I feel like there was so much pressure for so long to just, be friends with everyone and then follow anyone back who follows you. And it can be so great to have people around you, of course, and to be supportive of other people. But when I was going online all the time and I wasn't feeling good, I was doing it to myself because I was actively choosing to follow those accounts and I had to make a choice on what I did and didn't want to receive. And another big thing that helped me was learning, like you said, before bed or in the morning, right? Putting on the news. I can't do that. I can't handle any more upsetting things than what I already go through because my brain needs that break. And when I learned that, it made such a difference in my energy levels. When I learned I cannot be scrolling on social media as the last thing I do before I go to bed, made such a difference. Put my phone in a different room, started learning these different ways to just choose what I do and don't want to fuel my mind and body with. But we often don't realize we have so much more control over our devices than we think. And everyone tells us, oh, well, it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm. But we kind of create our own algorithm. So
We do. We teach the platforms, absolutely.
We do. And if we can just learn how to focus on the connections that make us feel good, it makes all the difference.
1,000%. And we need to look at that in our real lives as well. And I feel like it's not a dog from me on social media as much as it's more of a conversation to say, where are we putting our heaviest investment? Are we right? Because I think about that as an entrepreneur, right? Like I need to invest in my team so that my team feels empowered to be the best versions of themselves and to win because they want to win. They want to feel the satisfaction of winning. So I need to be a good leader and invest well into them so that they can do that. Same thing with relationships, right? Like if you look at it like a meter that you're putting money into, and so when you make the mistake of hurting someone or pushing against or whatever, then you might find those moments where you need to take a withdrawal from that bank. But at the same time, if you're consistently just trying to bring more love and love them in the way that they communicate, our love language, right? Is it physical touch? Is it acts of service? Is it, for me, words of affirmation is a big one. Gifts, there are all these different sides of how you love people. So I think it's very important to be investing consistently in your relationships. And of course, you can get connected virtually, and that can have a great gift. But I think that that really is the best when it's a video or a voice note. They have studied the brain and seen that people who, when they get a call from their mom, their serotonin goes up in their brain. But when they read a text, it actually goes down. So if it's a voice note or a FaceTime call or a video where you're actually seeing a human, that's powerful. But I do think that we, as a culture right now, have a higher priority on the virtual, right? I want to order it. I want it to arrive at my door same day. I don't want to move. I want it to be here. My food, like if I could get my food delivered to my couch, I would go to that platform, right? Like, let's just be honest. That's what we're living with right now. And it costs more physically, spiritually, emotionally to say, I'm going to invest my time and resource into showing up for a friend, doing lunch, doing coffee. But you never know what's on the other side of that conversation. And one thing I've just recently like tapped into was thinking about the fact that sometimes the people that you're most sad are not reaching out to you. Maybe you're like, oh, I've really heard from my sister or mom or brother or someone who you would expect would reach out to you. We have to ask ourselves, well, are they going through something? Because a lot of us hide and hibernate when we're struggling. So it's almost up to us as a micro community with our friends and family to be the one to reach out and to put ourselves out there to love and to see where we can give and where we can make an impact. And then also be open to receiving that. Like that's a growth area for me right now. Everyone's been so kind lately and be like, I want to help you with Holy Spirit vibe. I want to get involved with the McCord list. Like, how can I help? And if I'm not like hiring someone, I feel uncomfortable receiving help. And so I have to look into the little girl side of me and say, where did something go wrong emotionally and mentally where I developed a neural pathway that said that I'm too vulnerable to receive help or I'm too vulnerable. And so that's my job as a human. But I don't think we learn these things very well outside of relationship because the person who feels most confident about themselves when they go down the street and they're like, okay, now I'm in a relationship and I feel really great. All of a sudden the immaturities come up. All of a sudden the bruised egos. It's a lot easier to hide when you don't have close friendships, you don't have close relationships. So it's good for us to be in communion with one another.
It really is. And like you said, this is not something people often teach us too. I remember being in school and you're taught like invite everyone to your birthday party and just talk to everyone and all these things. And it was never really about connection. It was just like create a conversation, right? If you don't know what to talk about the weather, right? Talk about your favorite color. I don't know, but it was never how to really connect with people and the importance of connection. And then we went through a phase in the world where technology has grown so much. And like you said, we want to order everything in all the time. We don't have to go out to talk to our friends because we can just send a text message and text back and forth and binge watch TV, which can feel so fun sometimes. But we don't remember the importance of that face-to-face connection of really just sitting there with people and how much it helps us learn about ourselves as well, like you said, in that healing. For me, something I realized lately that I guess I had forgotten is when I am struggling, I love to withdraw so much internally, but externally, I get even happier. So around other people, have the biggest smile. I have so much energy. People are always so confused on how I can be so happy and hyper and bubbly. And I'm just trying to show up for everyone else so that they feel good. And no one knows that, like, hey, I'm going through this because I'm so used to just talking about the good things, the things that make other people happy. And if we remember, connection is how we can help ourselves get through it. And connection for our friends and our loved ones. I had two friends this week who took the bar exam, and I didn't remember until afterwards. And I was like, I am so sorry. I didn't reach out and say good luck to you. I hope you know like how excited I am and proud of you. And then we just had this big conversation on how stressful it was preparing, and then that amazing feeling as you're going through it. And you're like, oh, I know these questions. And just getting to be there and support each other. They didn't feel like they went through it alone. I didn't feel as bad that I didn't check in before, which I, for now on, will be making notes on my calendar. It just forms that feeling of we both belong and we both matter. And it really takes showing up and having communication outside of just our phones.
1,000%. And I love what you said too about being in that connection, that relationship, and really connecting and talking through the things that we're feeling and where we're at, because I think that that's where there's such an opportunity, I think, for compassion when someone's struggling, for understanding, right? We're challenged to be curious instead of being angry. I've noticed that for myself so many times, of just the invitation to ask more questions instead of jumping the gun and just assuming the worst. And you just don't know what it costs someone to show up, what it costs someone to get out of bed, to go somewhere. You know, I've had many seasons of my life, and I wish it was fully behind me, of dealing with chronic health things. And you know, to be honest, last night I had like the biggest cry to my husband, and I was just talking about how like people don't understand what it's like. And that's where there's this gift in like-minded community, who can support you and you can support with what it actually feels like day to day. Because I think, you know, we're in a culture and a world where we're called to be so strong. You know, I started working at 13 years old. I started working because I was dealing with major depression, and I wanted desperately to get out of my house because I would just lay in my bed and watch the time clock by. I was homeschooled, so I'd finish my school and have no one around and nothing to do. I was all alone in the house, and I was 12 at the time, and I begged my mom to let me get a job, and I got to start when I was 13. And I would just work as much as they let me. They couldn't afford me, so I'd clock for some of the hours, so I'd clock out and just keep working. And you know, it was interesting because just on the drive over here to the studio, I was talking to a friend, and he said, you know, there are two sides of you. There's a side to you that who loves to win and is like who loves to work hard and see results, and you feel comfortable in that because you know where you're most successful. You know, like it's almost like a math equation, right? I can stand firm in math to know that 2 + 2 will always be 4. Like that's just what it is, right? But in the world of art, in the world of marketing, in the world of emotions, it's a fluid experience. So when you start doing things spiritually, where, you know, I found my faith and started like running in a different direction, he said to me, that's the other side of you. That's the spirit led, the Holy Spirit led side of you that is moving in a different way. And it's harder to quantify that success. It's harder to, like, because success, quote unquote, is really like opposite. You know what I mean? It's like give and it will be given. Well, that would, and then you read scriptures and it talks about how when you're generous, that more comes to you. That doesn't make sense in our economy, right? It makes sense in God economy because there's God math. So I think that what I'm starting to challenge myself in is how to feel comfortable in rest, how to stop and how to restore. Now, some other people, their challenge might be the opposite as mine, right? Their challenge might be having the confidence to get moving, to get unstuck, to like avoid like where you're analyzing everything and you're feeling paralyzed in that. You're like, I can't do anything because I want it to be perfect and I can't do it perfect. So I'm the girl who's going to be like your best friend saying, you absolutely can start before you're ready, push and go. You'll get there, have confidence and do it even if you don't have confidence. Just do it, right? I'm like a Nike slogan. But for me, the message is the opposite. The message, the learning, the growth opportunity is to stop, is to rest, is to restore. So we have to really come to know ourselves to find the transformation mentally, because we really need to know where we might naturally skew so that we can keep both sides of ourselves at rest and at ease and moving in the direction of growth, because sometimes spiritual growth looks different than what we're taught, which is get your perfect resume, get your perfect portfolio, push, 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 bang on doors, don't take no for an answer. All the things that work in the business world, if you try to apply them to relationships, it's like, oh my gosh. Like they said no, like respect the no, right? Like don't take, like bang on every door, like no, don't do that, you would be a stalker, like, right? So you have to imagine there's the business side of you that has that muscle, and then there's the emotional side. And what you normally see is that people thrive in one of those areas, and so when they're in the other area it's more challenging, but that's where the opportunity is.
This is not something we talk about much either or think about. And this is really where I started to struggle a couple weeks ago, is trying to figure out those two different sides of me. I graduated and suddenly I wasn't a student and I was, I guess, a full adult, which sounds scary, but I guess I am, so that's fine. Um, and I was talking with my parents and being so supportive, but also very hard workers. They were like, okay, like now what are you doing with that extra time that you have? And part of me was like, I kind of want to focus more on my connection with myself with those extra hours and more on that mission driven work and just feeling that sense of belonging community. And because I do spend so much of my time with work and being an entrepreneur and trying to figure out how to build revenue and build something to leave behind. And I was like, these two parts of me feel very confusing because as an adult, you're taught to really prioritize one side because that's our economy. That's what our world seems to look like and prioritize. And my parents were pushing on that. And I was like, but I feel like this is so important. And then I felt so disconnected trying to figure out, can they both exist? And they can, but we're often just under this assumption that it's one and you have to live your life in one way and you can show up in different areas as a version of you that belongs in that area.
1,000%. And I love what you shared because I think it's the feeling many of us have. In fact, working in entertainment, people get off of a show and instantly it's like, okay, what are you doing next? And I'm always like, why can't we have the conversation of like, hey, like, why don't we sit with this for a little bit? I remember so I had open heart surgery last year, and I was recovering, and in those 2 months that I was really trying to kind of figure out who Rachel was again, I was changed, to be honest with you. I've studied since that a lot of people, when their heart is stopped, when they have a heart surgery, especially an open heart surgery, emotionally, it's a journey for you to really kind of find your path. And being in my 30s, having a 3-year-old son, having had the show on Bloomberg Television and the Jumbotron in Times Square and all the like bells and whistles that come from working your butt off from 13 years old on, it didn't really make any sense. It was like suddenly I was like, wait, like what? Like I just kind of ran this whole race and like that's it. Like, like what do I do now? I wasn't motivated to do any of the old stuff that I had done and I was very lost. And so I started praying and I was like, God, please just show me like what you have for me. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, what is the you thing that I can do? Because I wasn't sure I'd survive the surgery because 1 in 5 people don't. And so when I first opened my eyes, I remember thinking, I survived. Thank you, Jesus. Get this out of my throat because I had like the big breathing tube down my throat and everything. And, I think when you got 2 weeks to prepare for someone to stop your heart, it just shifts everything. Like everything that you think you know about your life and how many years you're going to have. And like, oh, I'll start worrying about that when I'm like 75, and he's like, it just is like, oh, we're here right now, and it was very, very impactful and transformational in my soul. And I didn't really know which way was up, but I knew that I didn't want to waste a heartbeat. And I did not want to spend my time on this planet, however much I had left, like the same way that I had before, where I was really so focused on accolades and climbing the ladder and being successful that I was like, wait, am I being a good steward of my love and my relationship for my husband? Am I being a good steward of my faith, of believing who God is and knowing that there are people who don't know what it's like to take his yoke upon them because his burden is light? And what does it look like if I'm over here believing this with my whole soul, but I'm too afraid? I'm too concerned. I'm going to overimpose. I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. So I stay quiet and then I stay comfortable. Like I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I started praying like, God, what do you have for me? And then in that journey, I was in a Jamba Juice, literally grabbing takeout. I was not praying. I was kind of in a bad mood actually because we were running late and I don't like to be late for anything. But we were heading to get my son baptized. So you would think that like of anything to not worry about, I think we're good here. Like this is not the thing that you stress about. It's Sunday. Um, and I was in there kind of waiting for my takeout, and I just saw someone walking out, and on their back, I truly saw Holy Spirit vibe appear on their back. And I was like, what? Like, oh my gosh. And then I was just like, that's it, Holy Spirit vibe. And so I get in the car, my husband's driving all the way. It was like that big Baptize California event at the ocean. So we had a while to drive. And I'm like in the passenger seat, Googling it, the URL is available, social media is available, everything's available. And I'm like, wait, how is this even possible right now? So I'm going through and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is my thing. And then crickets. So I had this whole vision. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do and nothing. And I was like, hey, God, remember that vision you just gave? Like, what are we? Because my Rachel flow is to move consistently. But I think that God actually has a different flow. It's more like the ocean where the waves go and the waves come and they go and they come. And so I think for me, starting to understand that that is really what this was, right? This is like understanding that in this moment, I'm not being called to do something. But then when he tells you go, it's go.
I think it's so difficult for us to trust the process, right? Because Amazon delivers same day now, right? Like I can have something within seconds if I want it. It's very, very difficult when things aren't instant and instantaneous. And a lot of times, I know at least for me, it makes me question, am I on the right path, right? Am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work out? What's wrong with me? Why am I not making it work, right? And I like to take it all on as if it's all about me. Got to work on that. But it's so hard sometimes to trust the process. I also want to say, I'm so glad you survived. So many people don't always listen to themselves and really dig deep into see who they are and where they belong and how they can make an impact in this world. And you just show up like that every day.
You are such a sweetheart. Well, and think about it. Like we have these little missions that are predestined and we get to do them, but it's about us listening and being mindful and really like tapping into what's being called for us and what we're being invited into. And that mentality of if it's not going fast, then it's not working can sometimes maybe it's like we have to look at our foundation. Are we putting a foundation in like the 21st century where everything is a certain way? Or are we looking back historically about how a tree grows and how fruit grows? You know, you don't plant a seed and then the next day be like, wait, where's my apple? Like I thought I was going to get, it's like you plant the seed and the seed has to break through and then it starts to go deeper and you kind of get these opportunities to just expand and it becomes this opportunity for something more. But it takes time. And I think that when we look back at history, we look at nature, it is our nature, like how we naturally are.
There's so much pressure all the time to figure out what you want and how to make it work. And I remember so I started my nonprofit as a blog when I was 12. So similar to you for just working so hard on things at a young age. And by the age of 17, I was having these like breakdowns all the time where I'm running out of time. Why am I not better? And I constantly go through those phases where some like big life transition moment happens. And I'm like, okay, I should be better now. Things should be exactly the way I had planned out when I was 12. And like you said, it takes time. And you plant a seed, and some will grow into amazing, beautiful trees with the juiciest fruit in the world. And some fruit may be rotten and some may not grow. You just might not have the green thumb there. And all of it's okay. But if if I keep expecting that it's just going to pop up like a cartoon every 5 seconds, I'm going to constantly be setting myself up for disappointment.
1,000%. And also just remembering that it's in that journey that we actually really find ourselves more and we sit with it. And, one of my favorite chapters, I think it's John 14 in the Bible, and it talks about like he is the vine and we are the branches. When we stay plugged into him, we will bear much fruit. But apart from him, we can do nothing. So I think it's a reminder what we were talking at the beginning of this conversation about input and output. Like, where are you getting charged? And whatever you believe, right? Like I have a faith that that has carried me through, and now I see little hearts everywhere, like on the ground and flowers. I see them in water prints. It's so crazy. Like I could never unsee the hand of God in my life and in the lives of the people around me and in the world. And, a lot of people, we see so much pain and we think, oh my gosh, like there couldn't be a God, because if there was, all this wouldn't happen. But I'm like, no, there has to be a God. It's not a puppeteer. It's not someone who controls our every step. We as a human race have the choice, right? We can choose to show kindness to the world. We can choose to not. And you've seen people throughout history choose great acts of kindness like Mother Teresa and impact huge generations to come. And you've seen huge tragic stories of other people, and I won't give them a platform here, who have made the opposite choice. And they've had that opportunity, right? Because we live in a world where we have the choice. We're not these puppets. We don't have like this great God who decides if we're going to, what we can and can't do. But I think when you are prayerful in your approach, you can actually see science on the brain showing the impact in your mind of how beautifully impactful it is. So I would just encourage every single person to explore. We are all in a journey of truth. And when we can sit in a crowded room with many different beliefs, many different backgrounds, experiences, hopes, and dreams, and hold space for each one of us and hold space for each conversation, each story, right? Like, as a child, I went through a lot of trauma. I grew up in trailer parks and I had a lot of church hurt, as they call it. But we are all these beautiful broken vessels who God chooses to use. And I have yet to encounter a perfect human, but I am committed as a person to continue to show up with intentionality, to be the best version I can of myself, to call myself out on the oftentimes when I make mistakes, I let pressure or stress or both affect how I impact the world. But I think that one by one, as we hold ourselves accountable and we give ourselves the encouragement to say that we do have a choice, right? Every single one of us, that is when we can see true transformation, not just in ourselves, but in the world at large. And so I hope whoever hears this message is encouraged to search out faith, because I truly believe that God knocks on all of our heart's doors and wants desperately to encounter us, and will leave the 99 to come for the one and change our lives. And I can't talk about mental health as someone who has faced major depression, faced PTSD, faced panic attacks and anxiety and difficulty, and have taken medication for that, and have gone to therapists for that, and treatment facilities for that. I cannot talk about that without saying that truthfully, it has been an act of God, which is, and many acts there, to be honest, but beautiful, intricate, kind, gentle, loving, non-judgmental, transformational love that has and continues to hold me upright when I face scary reports from doctors, and I face scary challenges as a mom and as an entrepreneur and as a human being. It's like, that's why I believe that when we want to find ourselves, we have to look within the natural growth of nature, because I think God created the world in its truest form to show us how we can also emulate. You see these beautiful things, you see birds fly and fish swim, and I think that we are here to worship. We are here to connect to the one who created us, because you'll never find the use of a beautiful invention like a human being without going to the one who invented them, who created them. Because with all of my learning and all of my understanding, if you hand me a tablet I've never seen before with no owner manual and I have no idea how to use it, I would be completely lost. So we have to go to the inventor if we want to understand an invention. And if you have an invention, you need to charge. You need to charge it. So maybe this season for you post school is a season of sitting, stopping, resting, restoring. And like you felt intuitively, which is, I feel like, where the Holy Spirit guides us, is to go within and to listen and to do what makes sense for you, because we were not created to make money. That's not why we were created to exist. And success can mean very different things to one person from the other. For me, it used to mean that I had a lot of money in my bank account and I had a lot of success in relationships and resources and all these things. And I've come to learn that success starts for me with my faith. And then that spills into a better relationship with my husband, because I am not coming to my husband with desperate needs. I'm coming to him as a whole person who is being charged by the one who created me and knows me best and knows what I need. And then that spills over as a mom, and that spills over into my community and my mission work and my business. But you cannot pour from an empty tank, and you can't. So we have to honor our spiritual experience, because it's more of us than even our bodies.
It really is. And one thing that just really helps me through the depression, through those really dark and scary depressive episodes, is knowing that someone out there, no matter what, I'm never alone. I'm never walking through it alone. And that's something that takes everything in me to remind myself a lot of times, but it's one thing that really helps. Rachel, I'm just so grateful for you, all that you are. Thank you so much for joining me. As we are wrapping up, can you give one last final piece of advice for those listening who are saying, you know what, I haven't really been living by my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is yet. How do you think they could begin?
Well, that's such a beautiful question. I mean, my natural advice would be to pick up your books, because both the children's book that you gave to Jude and the ones that you gave to me are just so helpful, I think, in this deeper discovery of ourselves. But, I would say prayer. Honestly, nothing's changed my life like prayer. Prayer works. It changes lives. It changes outcomes, and it can change you if you allow it. And I would say that honoring all backgrounds of belief, to be able to say, come with an open heart. Because if you try to judge faith based on experiences you've had by the beautiful broken vessels that we as humans are, you'll never really see it. And the reason it matters greatly is because God can change your life. He's changed my life. He's changed countless people's lives. So that would be the absolute thing I would say. And I think in that, your purpose will come alive. There's a beautiful book by Rick Warren called A Purpose-Driven Life. And it is a beautiful, easy to digest 40-day journey where every day you read maybe 2-3 pages and you ask yourself a question, you answer a question. And in that process, you can really tap into that understanding of who you were created to be.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.